Hello guys, welcome to the next in the sequence of videos in which I'm talking about the Merchant of Venice. As you can see, I'm all the way down to Act 2, Scene 7 because I'm not reading and I don't need to read every line or indeed every scene of the play. I tend to be a little bit um, discriminatory when I'm doing junior cycle because I know what's required. It's nice if you have read the whole play, I suppose, as in line by line. I know that most junior cycle students find that very difficult, so I'm just focusing in on key moments, okay? So I'm not really looking at the Portia story. When it comes to showing you sample answers, I've got some notes on Portia and her interaction with her suitors especially, but really her major role comes in the climax scene in Act 4, Scene 1. What I want to do now is just, again, make a very quick video in which we look at a key moment when it comes to Shylock. Now, first of all, it's really important that you understand that Shylock really, really loves his daughter, Jessica. Sorry. And we know that Jessica has eloped with Lorenzo, her lover, and has stolen Shylock's money. So in this scene, Act 2, Scene 7, Salarino and Solanio, they meet Shylock, and like some of the language that's used is unpleasant. I'll just give you a couple of things that happen in the scene. We hear that Bassanio is under sale. So Bassanio has got the money and he's gone off to Belmont to try and woo Portia. Gratiano's gone with him and he's not sure if Lorenzo is there or not, or whether he's gone off. Solanio refers to Shylock as the villain Jew. With outcries raises the Duke who went with him to search Bassanio's ship, so because he's looking for Lorenzo, because Lorenzo is with his daughter. He came too late, the ship was under sail, but there the Duke was given to understand that in a gondola were seen together Lorenzo and his amorous Jessica. Besides, Antonio certified the Duke they were not with Bassanio in his ship. So this is the evidence that gondolas are obviously associated with Venice. This is the evidence that Jessica and Lorenzo have departed. And then Solanio reports the great grief displayed by Shylock when he realised his daughter was gone. Let me just read this for you. I never heard a passion so confused, so strange, outrageous, and so variable as, and just look at this again, the dog Jew. Now, as I said in a previous video, I think a lot of people in Shakespeare's audience wouldn't have been necessarily offended by that because it was a time of prejudice. But first of all, it is offensive, and second, I think when you look at the overall, and I know this might be something that some people would argue with me with, if you look at the overall portrayal of Shylock in the play, there certainly is a suggestion that this kind of overt racism, the term anti-Semitism wasn't invented at the time, but this term of prejudice, this type of prejudice, is unpleasant to Shakespeare. Solanio is not a nice character, and he uses this kind of language in a way which is malicious and unpleasant, but also the portrayal of Shylock, which then follows, portrays Shylock in a very sympathetic and human way, in my opinion. And I'm allowed to have an opinion, as indeed are you. You can disagree with me, or you can agree with me, or you can have your own interpretation. But here's what he describes. This is how Shylock reacted when he learnt of his daughter's decision to elope and run away. The dog Jew did utter in the streets. Now, this is a good one to learn, okay? My daughter, oh my ducats, oh my daughter, fled with a Christian, oh my Christian ducats, justice, the law, my ducats, and my daughter. Now, if you can drill down into that and you can see a number of things, right? So first of all, let's look at this. Once, twice, 3 times, he mentions his money. So that's called repetition. And I can look over there on the wall and it says repetition creates emphasis. So he's devastated because he feels he's been the victim of robbery. His money has been stolen. But he also says, my daughter, my daughter, my daughter. So he's devastated about the loss of his money, but he's also devastated about the loss of his daughter. And then he says that she's fled with a Christian, and Christian is there twice. So Shylock is portrayed as a man who is distraught. He is a man who has to work really hard for everything he has. He's a man who has to go to his place of business, where he's spat upon, rated many times and oft by people like Antonio. Had Antonio void his room on Shylock's beard, kick him, call him a cur. So this is a guy who has to go through a huge amount in order to build his fortune and his security. And it has been stolen from him. Now that doesn't make him a grasping, greedy person because he's Jewish. It makes him an ordinary and recognisable, and for me, deeply sympathetic human being. I'll take the opposite point of view and talk about that in a moment. We then have to focus on his daughter. He loves his daughter. And his daughter is born into his faith, his Jewish faith. And if she's married a Christian, he has lost her. And for him, she has made a terrible mistake and she has lost her identity, her sense of who she is. So he's devastated because he loves his daughter and he doesn't want to lose his daughter, as any parent wouldn't want to lose their child. And he feels his daughter has made a massive mistake that's going to be harmful to her. And he's devastated by that, not because he hates Christians, but because he loves his daughter. So for me, Shylock, this depiction of Shylock, which is clearly, from Solanio's point of view, is supposed to show him in a negative light. To me, it shows him in a very sympathetic light. I think he's a deeply sympathetic character here. And then when he cries out for justice, when he cries out for the law, you get a sense of his feeling of being almost powerless, because he lives in a society where, because he's from a minority, because he's Jewish, he suffers discrimination. And there's a sense that while he is, if this had happened to a Christian, if a Christian businessman had his money stolen, if a Christian businessman, if his daughter ran off with a Jewish person, for example, that the law would react immediately. But he doesn't get equal justice. And I think it helps to explain why he becomes so determined to extract his pound of flesh at the end of the text. So I think that's a key moment, a very important quote. Loads to say. Now, again, if you want to interpret that as saying, well, he's just greedy and he only cares about his money and he's a controlling father and he doesn't want his daughter to, find love and so on, you can say that as well. You can say that makes him an unsympathetic character. On the wall over there, I'm looking at it right now, I have the letters FOSS with a big red mark through them, like an X. FOSS stands for fear of sounding stupid. And in my classroom, it's banned. That's why the red mark is through it. Don't be afraid of giving your opinion. Don't be afraid of disagreeing with me. We are trying to encourage you to articulate your opinions within discourse. That's what critical thinking is. If you agree with my interpretation, that's a great quote. If you disagree with my interpretation, but you do agree that that's an important moment in the play, then learn the quote and use it to make your own points. Okay? Now, what I want to do now very quickly is, so that's a report of how Shylock reacted when he heard about his daughter and his misfortune and his money being stolen. What I want to do now is go to where we meet Shylock for the first time and we hear his response to this event, okay? So here he is talking again to Salarino, and Salarino wants to know why Shylock wants to force Antonio to pay up his bond. So the news comes through that Antonio's ships have had great misfortune. And he says this, and I just really want to read this very carefully. He says, if it will feed nothing else, it will feed my revenge. He says, he has disgraced me and hindered me 500,000, laughed at my losses, mocked my gains, scorned my nation, thwarted my bargains, cooled my friends, heated mine enemies. And what's his reason? I am a Jew. Has a Jew not eyes? Has a Jew not hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passion? Now, I'm actually going to just delete. We'll go down as far as there. So to me, that's a quote you learn. To me, and I'm sure you already have, that's a quote you learn. And again, the combination of those words demonstrates Shylock as deeply sympathetic, and a victim of cruelty. And it allows us, even if we don't agree with his thirst for revenge, it allows us to understand him, making him a much more relatable character. Sorry if there's a bit of noise now you can hear in the background. So it's really, really, really important. Look at the level of resentment. And wouldn't you feel resentful if some bully had been at you your whole life? He's disgraced me, made a fool of me, humiliated me, hindered me 500,000. God, I've lost count the amount of times that he's gotten in my way and tried to stop my business. 500,000, by the way, great example of hyperbole, deliberate exaggeration by Shakespeare in the language. Laughed at my losses, mocked at my gains. Shown me no respect. When I've lost money, he's made fun of me. When I've made money, he's shown no regard for my success. So no wonder I want this pound of flesh. And then we get to it is the most famous line from this play. Why did he do this? What's his reason? I am a Jew. And then he asks these rhetorical questions. Has a Jew, you can say hath if you want to, I always kind of modernize it. Hath the Jew not eyes? Hath the Jew not hands? Organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions? And then he goes on, fed with some same food, hurt with the same weapon, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is. If you prick us, do we not bleed? I'm sure you have that learned. If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If we are like you and did rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Revenge. The villainy you teach me, and this is the third quote, I will execute, and it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction. So it's just a really, really, really key moment in the play. It happens in, now I'm just going to, Act 3, Scene 1. It's just a key moment in the play. Learn the name of the scene and learn those quotes. And learn those quotes. Because it just really adds substance to Shylock's character. It really does allow us to get under the skin of him. To understand why he is so determined and unwilling to turn away from his desire for the pound of flesh at the end of the text. It's not a one-off, and it's not because he's an evil person. It's certainly not because he's a Jew and Jews are bad. It's because he is utterly beaten down by not days, not weeks, not months, not years, decades, his whole life of unfairness, injustice, mistreatment, and all because of ignorant discrimination. The rhetorical questions that he asks just come to the same point. I'm a human being, and as a human being, I don't deserve to be treated the way you treat me. And if this guy is going to treat me like that, well, I'm going to take my revenge. And if you don't think that's fair, what would a Christian do? A Christian would do exactly the same thing and worse. So don't expect me to be nice. The villainy you teach me, I will execute, and it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction. Now that is a brilliant, brilliant moment in the play. It is not a soliloquy. It is a monologue. And it is the second really key moment in the play that I really do recommend that you work hard to prepare. Okay? So that's the end of that video. I hope you found it useful.